What's up guys, welcome back. In this video we're going to be fixing up the server. I just want to thank Mike for this. He brought something to my attention and basically our server has like a small flaw in it right now, basically of how we're doing things. So thanks Mike for pointing this out. So the flaw that we have right now is, notice how we're adding the seller ID here, or the seller username here. We're getting the seller ID from a foreign key relation with users, but in our model here we're setting this seller username and we're setting it with a hook here, add seller username, right? There's a problem with this though. When we add the seller username, it stays like that forever. And let's say we go like our user is Bob and we set add the username, and now it's in our auctions model and the seller username is Bob. But what happens, and there's no updating this. Like for example, if I then change my username from Bob to like, I don't know, Ron, then the seller username here is still Bob, and that's now incorrect because the user has been updated. So basically, if you change the user model or the user at all, then the auction, it gets out of date. This seller username gets out of date. So the way to handle this is to just remove both of these fields. Same thing for top bidder. That's the wrong way to do things. Instead, we should use this populate hook and just add the username. So I'm going to walk you through adding that in, and this is a much better way to do it. So again, thanks Mike for pointing this out, and now we can fix this. So the first thing we're going to do is kill the seller. Well, we can keep seller username and top bidder for now. We're just going to remove them in the future. So what we're going to do is first we can go into hooks, and we're just going to import this. So this is going to be from feathers hooks common, and I'm just going to follow how to set up this relationship that they have right here. You can actually copy both of these. And we don't have the import feature, so we're going to have to just use require. The feather server doesn't come with it by default. And here we have the user's role schema. We can call this user auction schema. And then we're going to include here the users and the name that we'd like. So for example, seller. So what is this populate thing going to do? What it's going to do is when we get a auction, we want to get the seller's username and the top bidder, the values of these. So what we're going to do is instead we're going to look at the ID field, which we get here, seller ID, and we're just going to add the object. So just kind of to show you what this is going to look like is we're going to make some post requests, and the server's not up. Let me turn that on. So just starting server running, and so I'm going to show you, I'm just going to authenticate with Bob. I'm going to show you what it looks like before and after adding these, the populate. Okay, paste this in here and we search. Okay, so this is what it looks like right now if I search this. We just have objects, and then we have, as we can see, the seller ID here, and seller username is Bob. So instead what we're going to do is we're basically going to remove this field, and our hook is going to look at this value and it's going to go fetch the user JSON for that. And so I'll show you what I mean. So first let's go ahead and add it. So we go to this hook. So we're going to do users. It's going to be seller is the name. So this is what you want to be called in your JSON. And then your parent field is going to be seller ID. This needs to match up with what you have in your JSON. And then here, child field is going to be ID, and that's the ID of the user model. And we want two of these. So I'm going to create an array. And we can drop this to the next line. And we tab all that over. Because we also want to get the top bidder. And I'm just going to put a 2 so it doesn't conflict with the other one. And we get this from the top bidder ID. So now we can use this and populate our fields. So this is going to be in the find and the get. And if I come back over here, it shows you just go like this. You call populate, and then you pass in the schema that you make. The schema above basically tells you what data to grab. So we're going to grab the user auction schema, and that's just going to grab the user for the auction. All right. And then we're going to have to do one other thing. And that is when you're using the populate field, what you have to do is use plain JSON objects when you're using hooks. And I'll show you what I mean. So if I were to use this debug and I'll debug find hello. What debug does is it just prints what basically the object looks like. So now if I stop this, then I rerun this, right? And I run send. Notice how I get this big ugly object back. This is a sequelize object, and what we want is just plain JSON. So we're going to create a hook that just gives us the raw JSON. So we can say feathers generate hook, and I'm going to call it sequelize raw. And this is going to be an before hook and auctions, and we're going to put it for all. So now we can come back over here, and then in our sequelize raw, all I have to do is, this is just a parameter to the sequelize hook or object, and we just set raw equal to true. So now when the return value from doing a sequelize query, it's no longer going to be this gross object, it's just going to be regular JSON. And I'll show you. So now if we hit run, let the server start back up, you can notice we actually see real data now, and it's cleaner. And if we come back over here, you'll see now the seller. Notice how it passes the whole object back. And this is, now we can grab the username, the email, all these other data fields, which are really nice. So instead of just like setting the seller username here, which is static, we then grab the seller every time using this ID, which never changes. So now if I change my username to something else besides Bob, it still works. And just to show you where this conflict is, I'm going to actually rename myself real quick. So localhost 3030, and we could do a patch request, and I think it's 1. So to update ID 1. So I specify what I want to change here, or I give the ID of which object I want to update, and I want JSON, and I want my username to be Ron instead of Bob. And in the header, I just need to pass in my auth token to actually change that. You can copy the one we're using here. Page not found. I just need to do auctions. Oh my gosh, not auctions, users. Okay, so now this guy is Ron. So now if I were to pull this again, notice how I am now updated as Ron, but my seller username here is still Bob, so that's incorrect. So that's why this static, why this is bad and why this is better. If we scroll down here, we should also see for top bidder 2, for when there is a top bidder, we see this data as well. Now I can come back over here. We did break our code slightly by doing this. So now if I just go to auctions, not auctions, our hook, our place bid hook, we're using data values, which no longer exists now that we're using the raw keyword with sequelize. But we can just remove that and we should be good. So I'm just going to restart the server. I'm going to come over here, and I'm just going to try to place a bid. So I'm going to copy this, headers, just to make sure everything's still working. I'm going to place a bid, and I'm going to place the bid on auction 1. So right now for auction 1 we have the top bidder as A, but after this we should see Ron as the top bidder. So if I send this, no errors, it looks like it worked. It's $10 more, it's 162, it's 152. Now if I request this stuff again, we have Ron as the top bidder and the seller. Alright, so that's all good. Now I'm just going to clean up this stuff. I will have to reset the database because I am going to remove some columns here. So I'm no longer going to store seller username and top bidder. I no longer need a to add the top bidder username here for add top bidder. I still need to add the ID though for this hook, and then the add seller. The add seller username hook is no longer needed, so I'm just going to delete that. And when you remove a hook, you also need to remove it from where you call the hook. So add seller username here, add seller username, kill that. Okay, so add seller username is gone, and you notice how we got removed 2 fields from our auctions. So I'm just gonna have to wipe the database. So I can go to pSQL real quick, drop the database, recreate it. And now I'm just going to repopulate the database with some data by making some post requests. And then in the next video, we'll be fixing up the client because we made some changes here. So we're going to have to change basically just how we handle the data on our client side. And then we should be good. But this is much better now for our backend. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.